and, mercifully closer, the heavy step of Captain Panaka's boots. Padme crouched beside her, fixing some wrinkle in the hem of the voluminous black dress. "We will do this," she said, so softly that Sabe barely heard her. Sabe reached down, and Padme took her hand and squeezed it. "This dress has enough Carlini silk woven into it to protect you and anyone standing behind you in a firefight, and you know that's only the beginning. Naboo resists in its own way. Your people are with you, Your Highness. We are ready." They were comforting words, and Sabe could easily imagine saying them herself, except she would never let her queen face such a dangerous situation, no matter what protections were woven into her robes. Panaka coughed, and the door to the terrace was pushed open by uncaring metal hands. It was time for Sabe of Naboo, bodyguard and handmaiden, to do her job. And she would, because that was what she had always chosen to do. Sabe turned to face her enemies as the Queen of Naboo, and Padme all but disappeared into her shadow. Part 1. Chapter 1. Padme Amidala was completely still. The brown halo of her hair spread out around her, softened here and there by white blossoms that had blown through the air to find their rest amongst her curls. Her skin was pale and perfect. Her face was peaceful. Her eyes were closed, and her hands were clasped across her stomach as she floated. Naboo carried on without her. Even now, at the end, she was watched. It was no more than was to be expected. Ever since she'd entered the arena of planetary politics, her audience had been unceasing. First, they had commented on her interests and ideals, then later on her election to queen. Many had doubted her strength in the face of an invasion, when the lives and well-being of her people would be held ransom against her. Hers to save, if only she would give up her signature, and she had proven them all wrong. She had ruled well. She had grown in wisdom and experience, and she had done both rapidly. She had faced the trials of her position unflinching and unafraid. And now, her time was ended. A small disturbance, the barest movement through the otherwise peaceful water, was Padme's only warning before her attacker struck. An arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her down into the clear shallows, holding her there just long enough to let her know that she had been bested. The Queen of Naboo surfaced, sputtering water in the sunlight as her handmaidens, her friends, laughed around her. Yane and Sashay, who had suffered for their planet during the occupation. Erte and Rabe, who had helped make sure their suffering meant something. Sabe, who took the most frequent risks and was the most beloved. Together, young and seemingly carefree, they were a force that was often underestimated. No matter how many times they were proven able, people who looked at them were blinded by their youth and by their clothing, and dismissed them yet again. That was exactly how they preferred it. The Lake Country was renowned for its privacy. Here, even the Queen could go unnoticed, or at least be easily overlooked. Naboo's natural heritage was to be protected and treasured, even before new treaties with the Gungans had been signed, and this had reinforced the isolation of the lakes in the region. The bustle of the capital was far away, and Padme could have, forever how small a moment, some time to herself. Well, to herself, her handmaidens, the guards Captain Panaka deemed appropriate, and all the household staff. Solitude, it turned out, was somewhat relative. From the beach, Quarsh Panaka watched his charges frolic in the sun, with an all-too-familiar expression on his face. He had argued to bring 10 of his people down to the water's edge with him, and Padme had conceded. Eventually. This give and take had once been his custom when it came to dealings with the Queen, even if their relationship had grown colder and more formal of late.